Good morning and good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to our exclusive webinar on e-commerce in 2024 and the predictions of everything that we can be expecting in this year. I'm Alex, your host for today's webinar or panel discussion, and I'm hoping to explore a little bit more in detail about what we can be expecting in 2024 over the rest of this year in regards to e-commerce and also in particular to live shopping. Like, I guess, so many industries, the e-commerce industry, if I can call it that, is constantly changing, and it's sometimes just impossible to keep up, whether it is from TikTok Shop, Instagram stories, short form video, long form video. What is it that we should all be doing? And of course, in just the last year, generative AI. So I'm hoping to explore a little bit more of that as we go through this next hour. And I just don't think this is a much better time to be sitting down with our panel of experts today, who will be giving us some unique insight from, I think we worked out, just over 100 years worth, more than 100 years worth of experience across 5 people, which isn't too bad. So I'm hoping that we're not also just going to be discussing the trends and insights and innovations that are going to be seen in 2024, but also giving you some actionable insights and inspiration to improve your own e-commerce journeys in 2024. So, before we dive into our panel discussion in a bit more detail, a little bit more housekeeping, just a bit of a reminder to our attendees and those joining particularly on StreamYard, YouTube or Facebook, do feel free to submit any questions that you have for our participants into the chat. If you type those in, I'll try and keep track of them over the course of the hour or the next at least 45 minutes. And then at the end, I'll put those questions to our panelists, who will do their best to answer and respond and give you some more insight that you might be particularly looking for. So, without further ado, we'll now get to introducing our guests that we have in the studio this afternoon. I'll start with Stephen Hubbard, who, like others on our panel today, has himself alone over 25 years experience in e-commerce and retail, not just from Europe and Asia and the US, but actually around the world. He's going to be talking today a bit more about how he truly believes that live shopping can be complementary to traditional retail bricks and mortars, as we hear so much about how things like live shopping and social commerce is going to be the death of the high street. So we're going to be hearing more from Stephen on that. We also have Ian Rabbidge from Alvio. And like Stephen, Ian also has a wealth of experience in e-commerce. He focuses on the power of partnerships to be accelerating your e-commerce efforts in 2024. And I know that he has some interesting insights to share with us as well today. We have Esteban, who's joining us from Madrid. So it's a truly global lineup that we have for you. He's going to be talking a little bit about how scheduling is actually much more closely to how TV lineups work. And there's a prime time and an off prime. And it's going to be super, super interesting to hear a little bit more about that. And we're also honored to be, of course, joined by 2 esteemed colleagues from Sprii this afternoon. Christian Degn Vester, the co-founder and CEO, and he is going to be talking to us, I hope, a little bit about how authentic commerce. Super interested to hear about that, because I think authenticity is something that we just hear so much about in the last year. I can't seem to go anywhere on LinkedIn without hearing the word or being authentic and authenticity. So super interesting to see about how that's going to kind of link in with e-commerce. And finally, but by no means least, we have Krister, who is a senior executive partner at Sprii and has joined fairly recently. And he comes again with this huge amount of experience, former e-commerce director of Samsung and working for IKEA and Arlo and so many others. So thank you to all of you. Looking forward to some really great discussion, and going to get right into it. And in the kind of order that I've just outlined, we'll try and just kind of go through you one by one, if we may, and just get a little bit more of an overview about what you think is going to be the number one insight, innovation, trend for 2024 in e-commerce or in live shopping. So we'll start with Stephen. What's going to be the big thing this year, Stephen?
So I think the key thing is around the live shopping environment. I think a lot more high street retail, especially in UK, on the start of the curve. As we know, obviously, the last 2 years, live commerce has become a lot more prevalent in the Nordics and in other parts of Europe and globally. But certainly feel that this year is going to take off significantly with, I would say, leading high street retailers suddenly realizing the power of live commerce, and streaming, and how impactful along the customer engagement route that is, and drives obviously much greater traffic, not only into their own e-commerce platforms, but also into the bricks and mortar and high street. So very much about an omni-channel approach by key retailers in UK and Europe and globally, as has been over the last couple of years, and a lot of other parts of the world. So I feel that's the biggest thing that I will see, and I feel will happen over the next 3 to 6 months, as Sprii has already proved that in a great way through the Nordics already over the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right that's going to be kind of the one leading trend as we kind of go through, and I think that there's going to be so much that's going to influence that as well, as we go through. So next to Ian, if I can, and just kind of find you, because it's really interesting with you being the kind of, what Alvio calls themselves, the e-commerce partner platform. So one assumes that one of the key trends is going to be partnerships. Am I right?
Absolutely, and in fact, that's a key prediction from both Shopify and also PwC for this year. And a lot of that is really informed by the fact that trading is a lot tougher now. If you imagine the sort of the good years, the easy years of growth in e-commerce are pretty much behind us now. It's a really competitive space, and a lot of that competition is also being driven through social selling and the noise that creates and the competitive space that creates. Almost 1 in 3 brands will be using social channels to sell during 2024. And the big prediction from Shopify is that social sales will increase, social commerce will increase $2.9 trillion by the end of this year. So as a consequence, in this noisy environment, you've got marketplaces like Amazon and AliExpress really dominating, and the big brands really dominating. And the recommendation from Shopify and also from PwC is that smaller brands, in order to compete with this, really need to be looking at collaboration, forming partnerships around a shared consumer base, for example, and also shared practices and shared ideals.
Yeah, and I think that what's the great thing about live shopping, right, is the fact that it is actually open to huge brands or big brands, as well as the smaller player. But in order for those smaller players to really stand out, partnerships could be the key to help them sort of compete on that stage.
Absolutely, and actually, partnerships is almost the intersection between the themes that we're discussing today. So we're talking about authenticity, we're talking about live shopping, social shopping, and we're really with partnerships. If you have the right partnerships, the right brands coming together, and then forming those relationships and using some of these great tools to enhance them, then the future actually should be really, really positive for them.
Completely concur. Lewis, let's see if we can come to you in sunny Madrid, having our global impact. What do you see? You probably, I'm sure, agree it's about partnerships, and as Stephen sort of said, in terms of this kind of finding this kind of dual approach. But is there anything else that we can kind of really be seeing, whether it's about scheduling or about actually more and more people getting onto live shopping? What does that mean for competition? You're muted, Lewis. Sorry.
I am follow up with what Ian was mentioning, that this year is not going to be the rise of social selling or social commerce, but social live selling and social live commerce. And that will be the key. Okay, maybe we will come back to that later. But coming back to one of the revolutions that we will see this year, for sure, it's what we call the battle for live shopping prime time. the more and more brands are embracing this new format or this new approach to talk to the consumers, to entertain and to sell live, we will have more brands that will have to schedule the live shopping in different parts of the week. I just came back from Paris from a European workshop with one of our clients. And globally in Europe, they were mentioning that the key days for live shopping were Tuesday and Thursday, between 6:30 and 8:30, depending on the country. So we are having right now the explosion of brands going live, doing live events and focusing in these two slots, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6:30 to 8:30. So what will happen? There will be a big battle for the eyeballs of the consumers at that time.
And presumably, if there is also a prime time, that there is also going to be an off peak, and maybe there's going to be challenges around there as well in terms of kind of really defining your audience and figuring out whether they are off peak viewers or prime time viewers.
Yeah, exactly. And that means that we are battling for the audience. And one of the big challenges that the brands will have, and with social live shopping and social live selling we will solve, is how to reach the audience. In the past, brands were more focused on their on-site live shopping, and they were doing a huge effort to drive audience to their own website. Now, thanks of technologies like Sprii, for example, we will have access to where the audience is, and audience is in social media. So we will see, a huge pump up of social live shopping between brands that will convert their Instagram and Facebook accounts from a pure brand awareness channels to a pure live shopping and conversion oriented channels.
Super interesting. Christian, if we can come to you now. In our e-commerce predictions report, which was released last month, you talked about authenticity. And as I said before at the beginning of this webinar, it's a word that we're hearing so much about, being more authentic, being your authentic selves, brands being authentic. Mm-hmm. How's that going to link into e-commerce and live shopping?
Yeah, so I think it's already linked in, and as you say, I think many of the viewers we have here, but also e-commerce brands and marketeers in general can recall that when you are getting real, it works very well. On our users and on the consumers, we really see this, especially on social medias. I think it's due to that we simply like relatable things, and especially when we get the feeling that we are invited a bit in behind the scene of a brand or a person. We really see that this attracts a lot of attention, also in the lives, but also in general. And here, authenticity is just a key for many live shopping strategies out there. Of course, there are also someone who succeed in another way, but this is a quite strong step in terms of getting success with live shopping and social commerce in general. And I think we see that in a lot of aspects, not only in live shopping.
Yeah, and I think when we get into the discussion, I'd love to kind of explore a little bit more about what that means to be authentic, because I know that you and I have talked a lot about the kind of celebrities versus non-celebrities and influencers versus non-influencers. So really looking forward to getting that into that discussion. And finally, Krister, really, again, when you kind of writing in the report that we launched last month, we kind of talked a little bit about hybrid retail, or you were talking about how this kind of concept of a hybrid retail. Again, it's a key word, this hybrid. We heard about that when we're talking about office or non-office. We're hearing this kind of keyword hybrid all the time. How's that going to reference e-commerce and live shopping as we go through to 2024?
Right. Thank you, Alex. Yes, I mean that's been part of my predictions for 2024, that this is going to be the year for hybrid retail, and I think the key driver for that is basically your customers or shoppers. I mean, we all know that 4 out of 5, customers, they see the retail experience or shopping experience as a mix of both online and physical retail. And also the challenges for companies, that customer expectations are becoming more and more demanding to deliver that kind of personal experience with, and when consumers interact with companies. And if you don't deliver that as a retailer or a brand, your consumer shoppers, they will buy from somewhere else. So I think there's a big challenge there for companies. And, for the past, 2-3 years, companies have been investing a lot in back-end and logistics to deliver that personalized experience. But I think now it's time for companies to also start focusing on the consumer-facing technologies, but also not to forget how you organize yourself as a company. I mean, most companies still, they organize themselves in different departments or silos. You have marketing, you have e-commerce, you have customer service, you have social media, and then you have retail sales, a wholesale team. So that work differently. And in some cases, or in many cases, they don't really look at it as one experience that you're going to deliver to that consumer. So I think that is one challenge on how you organize yourself. So companies need to look at, how do you actually optimize your organization to deliver that experience. I think second is looking at consumer-facing technologies. I used to work, as you mentioned, for Samsung, and we were quite early on exploring live shopping, for example. And the key reason for that was to kind of build on that human kind of interaction with our customers. And we developed a strategy where we use live shopping as, for example, when we launched a new product, the same day we had a live show where you can interact with product managers, you can ask questions. And of course, not to forget, drive sales. And we started already in 2020, and we have explored a lot of things, content, timings, as Louis was talking about. I think we came up to Thursdays at 7 p.m. That was the optimal time for Samsung to do live show and sell products, which was kind of interesting. So there's a lot of things happening now, but I think organization and looking at these consumer-facing technologies, and live shopping is one of those technologies that companies should really look into for 2024. And I hope we can, talk a little bit more deeper on this topic.
Yeah, absolutely, Krister. And I think the technology is obviously going to be key when it comes to any kind of trends, and particularly when talking about, e-commerce or digital commerce or whatever title you want to give it to. Technology is going to play such an important part in terms of how that all interacts. I think there's some really interesting themes there, and I think that what's key is that what you're all kind of saying in one way or another is that this is, I really like that kind of idea of hybrid and of partnerships, and this is not just a be all and end all. Like, this is not just a kind of like you have to be doing live shopping as the number one or 80% of your e-marketing focus in 2024. It needs to be one part of actually a much wider marketing strategy, if you will. If I can kind of put it to kind of all of you now, and it might just be kind of, whoever jumps in first, and then we'll hopefully, raise your hand or do it the traditional way as to how we're going to talk about this. But, I'd love to get some thoughts, from you guys about what you mean when you think of hybrid, and when we talk about kind of Phygital, when we talk about managing high street retail and how that works with e-commerce. What do we actually mean, and what does that actually look like in reality? And now there we go. Lewis, put your hand up first. Maybe that's a good way of doing it.
Okay, yeah, fantastic. Traditional way, that's Phygital.
Exactly.
All right. So first of all, I saw there's one question from Stacy asking me about a kind of question that Christian was also mentioning, and that I will relate that to your Phygital and what we call even more than omni-channel retail. The question about having a creator or not in on live. Yes, but always with someone that represents your brand. Okay, as Christian was saying, authenticity is absolutely key, and truth, authenticity are one of the main aspects of credibility of a live shopping event. Okay, So, and answering Alex to this, how we do Phygital. In our case, some of the live shoppings that we do are from a physical store of a client. And how we choose the host is chosen from the sales team, from the salespeople that works in the store or in all the stores. Okay, so we do a casting to find out who is the best sales manager that can be also a host in a live shopping event. That creates a sense of truth, authenticity, credibility, but also mixed the physical world with the digital world. Okay, so we try to mix both worlds, and that's the way we are having a great success with one of our main clients in Spain.
Ian, yeah.
Yeah, I've got an example actually, sort of in the real world of this. So here in London, in Oxford Street, Westminster Council is bringing together an initiative which will be launched this year. In fact, they're looking to turn over some of the retail units on Oxford Street that are currently American candy stores and discount stores, and an area that's not really giving a great experience for the consumer at the moment. And the plan is to then bring a bunch of different types of retailers in there, independent retailers, small companies, artisan brands, etc., to create a much more experiential, but also a discovery type of an experience in this particular part of Oxford Street. Now, we have a brand that we're working with who has pitched for one of those locations. It looks like they've won it. I can't say who they are at the moment. We're embargoed on that. But what will be happening here, and it's about the hybrid, but it's also about the authenticity, and it's also about the consumer experience. And the partnership bit is almost like the wrap around this, because what's going to happen with this unit is that it will become a consumer experiential zone. There'll be a multiple of brands within that particular environment. The transaction will happen online through screens within the retail experience, but it's very much around that partnership model. So the point here is that it's about finding the right brands who've got the right authenticity working together, but underlying all of that, and the most important part, is the consumer, because the particular brands that we're looking at here, the one thing that they do share is that they share the same consumer, and they're complementary brands to each other. So something that we're really excited about, because I think it's a great demonstration by the authorities in central London that something needs to be done, really to give a step up for small brands to compete against the big brands.
I think that's really interesting that you sort of say where it's actually so much of this is going to be driven by the consumer, and that's the one actually that's probably, and that's one that's also going to drive the trends. Stephen, you mentioned in the e-commerce report you had some very bold predictions for the market growth of live shopping in regards to e-commerce. Given that you've kind of got I guess, experience not just in the e-commerce, but also in kind of teleshopping and also traditional retail as well, what will be the most significant change in consumer behavior that will therefore influence the growth of live shopping or the growth of e-commerce generally, social commerce, whatever you call it?
I think there's a timing element of this. Obviously, education comes in. I think that, as we all know, obviously in Asia, especially China, I think $640 billion in 2023, 45 billion in the US. And obviously, the Nordics has been growing rapidly, as Christian and the team know. I think the UK market, it's been a lot less engaging initially, because it's a different habit or a different environment to shop. And I think that's where it is really about, as I say, the educational phase over the last 18 months in the UK. But I think once customers are able to experience that enhanced engagement and be able to liaise and talk and have that one-on-one experience with the presenter, and what Lewis was saying earlier is very, very much my view, is that you've got to have presenter-led content. What I mean by that is you have a brand ambassador or an expert along with the presenter enables that chat and that engagement on screen as well as with the consumer themselves. But I think the big thing is that looking at the growth, in those other countries, there's no reason why the UK shouldn't be getting to the 5 billion mark at least over the next 12 to 18 months in regards to consumer spending. And that is a smart way of working. As we know, the big upsides for customers are that video content creates that additional interest. As I say, there's the social commerce element of engagement and be able to ask questions and be able to answer them immediately. And I think because of that, obviously the conversion rates are much higher. So I think that's why larger retailers, I mentioned earlier, are a lot more open-minded to perhaps they have been over the last 2 years. And obviously there's a lot of pressure on those retailers to look at incremental opportunities. And we're talking about incremental revenues for those brands, because a lot of those consumers aren't necessarily the consumers that always walk into their stores. But actually, once they've got those consumers through the social commerce and video commerce route, that's where you drive, as I said earlier, the traffic back into the stores. Because I think this is where sometimes there's a miscommunication or misunderstanding by retailers, certainly in the UK, whereby they feel that video commerce is going to end up, actually taking away from the high street. Actually, that's not the case. So again, earlier I mentioned about the omni-channel experience. It's very much about the rounded, re-engaging audiences through live commerce and social commerce, and then obviously driving higher footfall back into the stores and the high streets as a whole. But certainly I believe that due to the larger growth, in the other countries, the UK is slightly behind, but certainly I feel there's no reason why, looking at the 5 billion mark over the next 18 months, that's certainly realistic for the size of the industry.
Yeah, I think, as you say, there's when you look at everywhere else, you can think, well, why would it not? And particularly with all the technical advances that we've had and everything else. I want to kind of go back to, because you kind of hinted upon it there as well, in terms of this authenticity when you were talking about dialogue and about the interaction between that you get with live shopping, and that is the kind of the Phygital world, to coin an expression. Because that's the kind of relationship that you have in retail. But I'd love to talk a little bit more, with Christian and others about this authenticity. Christian, we actually spoke, and we have a longer interview that will also go up on the Spree's YouTube about this as well. But we talked about this, what if people have access to a huge celebrity and yet they want to do a live shopping piece on a huge celebrity, but they fear that that's going against everything that they're now hearing about being authentic, because they're just spewing out brand affiliations and they don't actually have any kind of authentic love or passion for the brand. So when it comes to live shopping, should you be using celebrities, or should be using, a store manager from Bolton?
Yeah. So it really depends on the case, because I have seen very successful cases where you are using huge celebrities in the show, and it's a good idea if the celebrity is known for something related to the brand or the retailer, the products they are selling. For example, if it's a famous cook, it could be about kitchenware and so on. That's a good match. But if it's just a celebrity and not known for some specific things, it's quite important that they have a great sidekick, maybe from the brand, from the retailer, that can be facilitating the show and have the right information regarding the products and also answering questions. And then the celebrity can be more in the users or the consumers role in the live shopping show. So it don't work very well when the celebrity have to pretend that they know something they don't know, but it works very well if everyone is aware that, okay, we have this celebrity on board. It's to pull in attention to this live shopping show, and we are all agreeing on that, and that's also okay. And at the same time, we have someone from the company who are facilitating the live shopping show in general. But I think Luis also have some examples and experience with this in Spain.
Yeah. Actually, I was watching the chat, and Benjamin was asking a question, say, why not make one of your own employees a celebrity? And that's the story that we did with Orange in Spain. Orange, a leading telecom company in Spain, when they decided to launch a live shopping strategy, they give us a great challenge. Yes, we will go forward, but the host of the show must be one of our sales consultant in a real shop, in a retail shop. That was a huge challenge for us. We went through a big casting process, and finally we were extremely lucky that we found Annie. Annie today, she's the image of Orange live shopping in Spain. She's the host that has done more live shopping events in the whole story of Spain across all brands. And that's exactly, Benjamin, what we did. We create from one of the employees of the brand a live shopping celebrity. I will say a live shopping celebrity, okay? Not a huge celebrity. But right now, that has been a big step forward for the brand and a big step forward for this sales consultant from the Puerta del Sol, Madrid Puerta del Sol Orange retail shop to being, a live shopping celebrity and being well known by all the employees of Orange, for example.
Yeah. May I just add there, Alex, to the conversation? Yeah. Just based on my experience from working at Samsung, we tested, influencers, and we thought, we just bring one really, a really strong influencer in front of the, live shopping. But actually, most of the influence that we tried, because we tried everything. We tried influencers, we tried product managers, we tried marketing managers in front of the camera during a live shopping show, and actually, we found out that, in some cases, product managers, they know the product, but when they try to explain it in front of an audience, it becomes really boring. If you have an influencer that doesn't know anything about the product and actually doesn't really know anything about the customers out there, that is not working either. And actually, you don't even get the following from that influencer. So I think it's a good conversation. I think there needs to be somebody that can kind of deliver that experience. And we also tested music artists. So we brought in a celebrity that was, singing and playing in front of the camera. But then we got the feedback from people watching. It was like, hey, we want to talk about the product. We don't want to see the music concert. So it was kind of a, exploring and testing and learning, to kind of come out with the best solution for Samsung. And it was kind of a mix of entertainment, product, and kind of, influencers. So that was our learning, but it took some time to kind of get that to place. This was early on. I think now there's companies that can help brands and retailers to do this, as I guess, Luis, you're doing for your clients in Spain and otherwhere. So this is really good news. But back then there was nobody who could help us. So we had to find out ourselves, make the mistakes before anyone else does it. So
yeah, some really good valid points. Sorry, was someone going to say it? I missed. Ian.
I was just going to add to that back. And I'm talking now in the midst of time before the word influencer was in this world, and before social media and social selling, and even probably e-commerce. I'm talking the late 90s, early 2000s. I was running the commercial marketing for a brand that you'd all be very familiar with, which is Red Bull, and the methodology that we used to make the brand relevant was to put it into environments where it would be discovered in terms of what it did, the alertness that it would give, the energy that it would give, but also aligning that to what you could these days call influencers. They certainly weren't called that back then, and they were unknown people, but they were the snowboarders that were doing the extreme sports. They were the athletes. They were people that were using the product within these environments. And again, it comes back to the central point about authenticity. These people don't have to be well known or famous. They might become well known and famous as a consequence of working with them. But the key thing is at the start point that they're absolutely authentic with that brand, whatever that brand might be, within the point of use, within the occasion that brand is then seen in the hands of the consumer. And if you get those elements right, the rest follows.
Yeah, and Alex, if I just can add something, because I
Yep.
can see there are a lot who are interested in these questions. So if you are out there and want to go live with your brand retailer and want some examples of this, just write to us. We have a ton of examples of brands and retailers using key opinion leaders, influencers, or their own employees, or both. It's not either or, but we really want to share this with you.
Perfect, thanks. Yeah, no, it's a kind of valid point. I think there are lots of examples where people have done hybrid, they've done influencers, they've done employees. There's lots of examples out there, and it's going to be probably about finding what's right for the brand, what's right for the kind of employees that maybe you have access to, the ones that you maybe want to, or whether they have the kind of the willing to go in front of the camera and all of those things that are connected. So all of those things need to be taken into consideration. Super discussion already, and I'm kind of rapidly aware of running down to our last 20 minutes. But I wanted to kind of pick up on something that I know has been talked about before and mentioned, and we kind of hinted at it at the beginning. And that's the kind of the role of AI. Now, I know it seems to be that almost, ChatGPT or generative AI is almost a dirty word now in regards to kind of digital marketing or digital commerce. But when we're talking about authenticity, we're talking about hybrid, we're talking about content creation, what role is not just ChatGPT, but actually any of the others? What role is AI going to play in live shopping, either this year, next year, by 2030? Are we going to see completely AI-generated products, hosts, engagement, community chat, and that actually we don't need employees, consumers, or celebrities any longer? What do people think?
Yeah. So Alex, I think from my experience, I've already seen, obviously, the technology is available to replicate influencers, and actually generate content around the information on products. I think, obviously it comes back to the same point. You do lose the authenticity. My experience is seeing that, in the test environment, many occasions in the last few months. I just feel that, certainly that engagement, which is the natural element of asking questions as live, be able to give answers immediately, have the engagement with each other on that side of the camera, certainly it loses its essence. Now, from a point of view, advantages, for people, obviously the cost of generating content people perceive can be expensive. As we know, as Sprii being an example, technology exists now whereby you can just use your handheld device and generate content there and then in your room live as and when you wish to. So I feel the cost of content, in my experience, obviously from 20 years ago, and I've been in live shopping obviously for over 25 years, the reality is that it was very costly to make and generate commercial content. Now, because the technology is much more economical. So I believe that certainly that AI does have a purpose, certainly from a point of view of perceiving and understanding customer behavior, generating productivity of revenue and putting content in front of customers that they are interested in and their hobbies, etc. But I think from a point of view of the customer, a genuine and authentic perspective, I feel that AI will have a bit more of a struggle on that front. But I'm not suggesting it's not going to happen, because I can see it already happening. I think it may work for some industries or some service providers and products. But I feel that overall, I think the genuinity of people in human interaction, with the questions and engagement, say, within the other side of the camera, and again, the economical elements of technology now to allow people to go live is much different to even 3-4 years ago. So I believe there's already a huge benefits to going live for the brands and the retailers. And I feel that AI potentially, as I say, won't give the same engagement as humans will.
Yeah,
Do we all agree, or is anybody? Yeah, Ian.
No, I was just going to follow up from Stephen. I think Stephen's absolutely right. I mean, AI creates great efficiencies and intel, and I think if using AI enables you to get that intel, to be able to deliver the content, to deliver the interaction with the consumer in a much more efficient way. If it frees up time to become more engaging with the consumer and make sure that you really understand what the consumer needs and wants, then AI certainly has a role. And I think very often with new technology, there's a little bit of a life cycle in terms of quick adoption, and people may sort of push the boundary too far with using AI that actually puts off the consumer. And I think there'll be a reaction back from the consumer very, very quickly. And those who aren't seen to be authentic, it just won't work for them. And there's always, and again, if you come back to the consumer as being the central point here, always think about the consumer and what the consumer wants and needs, then you will deliver that correctly. And just use AI where it needs to be used, but remember about the authenticity in consumer engagement.
Yeah, super good point. I think there in regards to kind of it can be used, but use it the right way. Don't go overboard just because it's the latest new shiny thing.
I think I just want to add on Ian's point there. I think one thing that AI will totally revolutionize this year is customer service. So I think you would see on all big e-commerce sites or brand sites, you will see customer service being totally revolutionized with AI. So you will see these chatbots that are now powered by AI. I think that is going to be something that, I mean, was it yesterday or the day before when Amazon launched their generative AI assistant? So that will kind of be the biggest impact I would see for 2024 when it comes to AI as part of a shopping experience. That I think companies will roll out for all of their businesses.
Yeah,
go ahead, Ian. Sorry.
Just really, really quickly, in terms of partnerships and what we're seeing with the Alvio network, there's a very much a people involvement in partnerships being formed, and there always will be between two brands or a brand and a merchant. But what we're also seeing, and this will be coming further down the track this year, with our technology, AI will also enable brands to find other relevant partners to work with much more quickly, removing those points of friction that gets them to the point of doing that commercial relationship or forming that commercial relationship much, much quicker. And then if you continue to then add further levels of AI tech in there, bringing in other benefits such as the social selling and live shopping, it becomes a package. It becomes a package that, again, it's about efficiency and it's about time saving to deliver very, very quickly at the point at which you can then get that commercial return.
Yeah.
Stephen, did you have something to add? I know that you raised your hand as well.
Just going back to Ian's point about authenticity in regards to content, I think it's interesting. Reading an article yesterday around Meta, I'm sure a lot of people read it as well, around them now flagging the actual AI generated content compared to authentic content, because there's a lot of lobbyists in the US and other parts of the world that is obviously making a point that about losing human social engagement and what is real and what is not real. So Meta obviously have now agreed to start flagging. They already do to a certain extent, but now all AI generated content, whether that's flat imagery or video. So it's just very interesting activity from the technology companies as well.
Good point. Before we are going to want to go to some questions, and if you're kind of watching this and you've got a burning question, do put them into the chat. And we've been answering some of them as we go on the fly, which is perfect. But if you've got any more, then just kind of throw them into the chat as well, so that we can do a bit of a Q&A session towards the end. But I just wanted to do maybe again a bit of a round robin, if I may, if anybody wants to jump in and ask a little bit more about practicalities of people who may be watching this now. They're kind of already sold in on the live shopping thing, that they want to get going, they want to do it. They don't really know exactly whether they'll be using a big celebrity or an influencer or even a consumer, but they're going to do it. What would you say is the kind of like, the top two pieces of advice that you would give someone who just wants to, other than, contact Sprii or contact The Jump or contact Alvio? What's the kind of the first step that they need to be making sort of today or tomorrow?
Let me step in. Yep. Jump first. Okay, easy. That's easy joke. Okay, so one of the main challenges that we have when we sit down with a client, it's the product. I mean, today still, a product is key for stepping in live shopping. There are some industries and some companies that are more keen to embrace because the kind of product, the margin they have, the end user price, and others, it's more difficult to step in. Okay, so the first point is the product, and once you decide which kind of product, then you have to launch it just like any other marketing development. Promotion is key, communication is key, a script is key, production is key, technology is key. Okay, generating audience is key. But I will say that the first decision is product, and a wrong product can make successful or not, or failing a live shopping.
Can I follow up on that one?
Ian, yeah, do follow up. Yeah.
Yeah, so quite clearly, and I very much at the heart of the way I view this is very much about the consumer. Who is the consumer that you want to engage with and react with, and are there particular partners that you could be working with in order to then reach that consumer in a way that is authentic, but also to enable you to save on some of your costs, but also to increase that commercial return. So I'd be suggesting that consumer, and who can you partner with to then leverage that reach to that consumer.
Sorry, go ahead, Alex.
No, Krister, I was going to say, I was just going to follow up, but Krister, yeah, do add in your thoughts on this. Okay.
I think I have two recommendations. One is start now, not tomorrow. Yes. Start now. Second is, if you're sitting there as an eCom manager or marketing manager, CMO, you're allocating a lot of money on marketing today to drive acquisition. And the acquisition cost, it becomes difficult, more and more difficult to actually get the right consumers in front of your website. And it becomes more expensive, to find that, to drive ROI. So I think just allocating, take 1%, 2%, take 3% of your media budget and invest in live shopping content. And you can then measure and see the impact of engagement and sales. And from my experience, I think you will learn a lot by just doing a small kind of change in your budget allocation. And it's not a big ask or a big task. You can do it if you're a marketing manager, CMO, e-commerce manager, and start learning, start testing.
So, I think it seems to be a bit of a theme. Just do it, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, just doing it. I think it's interesting, Alex, that Sarah Lehman has a point here. She says, if live shopping is so great, why aren't more people lean into it? What are the major blockers? And I think a lot of it is around confidence. Do you understand? And I have a great saying: you don't know what you don't know. So I think the people here today, over 100 years experience around this environment, we can all add and give that advice. And there are a lot more agencies, as well now globally that try and support around live commerce, because I think it is the nervousness of the retailer, as we were saying before, that actually you've got to go ahead and do it. Jump in. Go put both feet in, 2-3% of your marketing budget, but you've got to be persistent with it, because it won't be overnight. But there'll be a lot of learnings around scheduling, about type of presenter or presentation, the format of commercial content, the products, what works best at what time of day. This is traditional home shopping at best. From years of learning. You've got to build your audience on those time of days. Some product areas work better than others. But I think the biggest thing and the biggest blocker for me in speaking and knowing a lot of CEOs and owners of retailers internationally is just the lack of knowledge. And so again, as Krister said, just go with it. Take that 2-3% and do those trials, do some A/B testing, do whatever you wish. But the main thing is that it does create much larger engagement and conversion. And therefore, where you are a brand that is online and struggling to create that volume of traffic, or you've lost traffic, this can certainly help support your revenue. And so it is very much about boosting the retail environment through live shopping. But you've got to go ahead and trial it, and you've got to do it and be persistent with it. So that would be my advice.
Do you think it's fear, Stephen? Do you think that that's, or anybody else, do you think that that's the biggest, again, kind of following up on Sarah's comment about why are people not leaning more into it? Is it just, they're just scared, they have no idea where to start, and it's just fear is just taking over, and they end up just putting money into social?
Look, I think there's the well-trodden path that people are familiar with. They've been down there. They know what their ROI looks like if they invest money in a certain area, because they've got a track record of what that's delivered for them. And people do what they're comfortable with. I think also one of the possible barriers of entry here is that there's a perceived high degree of cost in doing this. Now we're putting Sprii in front of brands that are on the Alvio network at the moment, and I think people are surprised that actually the barrier of entry in terms of cost is nowhere near what the perception is. Sprii has developed the technology to enable this to be done in a much more agile, cost-effective way. So I come back to what others have said. It's just do it and give it a try, because until you add other layers of marketing into the mix, you're going to keep doing what you're doing and probably still getting the same results.
Perfect. I'm going to kind of use this as we've already started comment like reacting to people's comments and also questions. So I'm going to use this as a natural segue as we sort of run into the last 5 or 6 minutes of this webinar, just to kind of pull up some questions. There's a key one, the first one that's come up. I know we've answered some of them along the way, so that's been fine too. But this question from Bez, can integrating, it kind of goes down the kind of AI route as well a little bit, integrating live shopping into 3D virtual experience or showroom work together to increase sales. Again, I guess maybe that's a very future thing. We've seen the Apple Vision Pro being launched to great viral memes of seeing people doing it and typing away on the bus and all sorts of things. So live shopping and 3D virtual experiences, is that something that we're going to see this year, next year, anytime soon?
Let me answer quickly. Let's start from the beginning. Okay, we are all very innovative. We want to go 3D. We want to do it with the Apple Vision Pro, whatever. But let's start from the beginning. As Ian say, let's give a try. Let's start your live shopping strategy. Don't give in one try. Give in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make errors. Okay, test different products, different hosts, different platforms, environments, technologies, and then we'll go further. Okay, in our case, we have been approached by 3D virtual companies that want to do that. We decided that it's great from a pure entertainment perspective. In our situation, we didn't see any client today that wanted to do that step in so far to just test something that even they have not tested live shopping yet.
Perfect. Does anybody else have any experience about how, or not necessarily experience, is it so new, but thoughts about how 3D VR might influence live shopping? Or I guess anybody, I guess it still goes down the same AI route about it has to maintain authenticity, right?
Authenticity, yeah. But I think Alex Ida also made a comment about messing up and actually connect you, and I think it's absolutely right. It comes back to the fact is that as Lewis said, you've got to test it, you've got to trial it. Actually, that authenticity, the bloopers as we call them, in the home shopping world of old, that actually creates even larger engagement. People love that. They love the natural conversation and how things are tested and trialed. So I think that immediate feedback, creates larger audiences and larger communities because of that. To be honest with you,
I think that the imperfect nature of real human interaction is the key here, and it's really hard for AI to make a copy of something that is imperfect and humanized. So we'll wait and see. Yeah.
When they put 6 fingers on one hand.
Yeah, that's imperfect. You're right, but not the human imperfect.
Yeah, no, I think it's completely true. I think, you know, as you respond to those comments there, that actually it's kind of that maybe a fear of messing up, but that is what makes that authentic connection. It's those failures, that kind of normal thing, and actually people kind of engage and connect with that kind of content a lot more. We're kind of down to the last sort of couple of minutes. I can't believe that we've already been live for sort of just over 55 minutes. We've had some fantastic discussion already, so thank you all for your contributions. Just a little bit about kind of as we kind of sum up. Does anybody kind of want anything burning that they would like to say, just as we kind of before we kind of wrap up and tell people where they can get more information as we go forward?
Yeah, maybe I will step in with one point that we see that must be something that will pop up this year, which is as retail media is one of the topic that is all across the marketing news agencies, etc. We will see that live shopping will be a new format and a new pillar for retail media, especially for big retailers like Fnac, Auchan, Carrefour. We see that in France, that they're already using live shopping events for selling this visibility, this space to their brands. Okay, so this is something that we see that sooner or later, big retailers, multi-brand retailers will use live shopping as a new format to generate income, to generate revenue as a retail media format.
Perfect. Yeah, no, very, very good addition there. Thanks, Lewis. We are running out of time, so unfortunately we have to kind of curtail this conversation for now. If anybody still has more questions that they want to ask or want to kind of find out more, then obviously do get in touch with us. And also, if you want to kind of play this back, of course, after we're live, the link will still work, and you'll be able to kind of listen back to the replays and find out anything that you may have missed. However, I do think that we need to conclude this conversation, as much as I would like to, and I think we probably could continue for at least another hour. Thank you to all five of you and all five of our panelists, Stephen, Lewis, Ian, Christian, and Krister. It's been so enlightening for me as someone who's maybe not necessarily been ingrained in the e-commerce world for certainly as long as you guys have, to really get a sense about where this is all going and what the trends are going to be in 2024. So the conversation doesn't have to end here, of course. If you have had your interest sparked in regards to what live shopping is all about and you want to give it a go, then I think I can say on behalf of all of us that all five of us are here to guide us. And there are contacts, of course, on the Sprii website, and you can kind of contact them on Sprii.io or send any of them an email or put your details in the chat as well, and they'll reach out. But in the meantime, thank you. Do stay tuned, everybody who has been tuning in today and liked what they see. We're hoping to do a lot more of these roundtables as we go forward into 2024 as well. As we know, these are just where we are now. I'm sure that the insights, the predictions, the technology, all of this is going to change over the course of the next 10, 11 months. So I'm sure we'll be having completely different conversations this time next year as we look towards 2025. But let's see how we are. But thanks again for everybody who have joined us. Thank you to you five for joining us as well. And we'll see you next time for a Sprii webinar. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you.